Hundreds of Christians slaughtered in Nigeria, and the president said nothing. But one man thousands of miles away did what no leader dared. He stood up and shamed him before the whole world. This is the story of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the soldier who gave Africa its voice back. When the news broke about the massacre in Plateau State, Nigeria, the world expected a swift and strong response from the Nigerian president. But days passed. Silence. No national broadcast. No visit to the families. No official day of mourning. Just silence. Social media exploded with grief and outrage, yet the presidency remained disturbingly quiet. In contrast, thousands of kilometers away in Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the young revolutionary leader known for his firebrand speeches and fearless stance, had already acted. In a press conference meant to address regional security, Traoré paused mid-sentence, pulled out a folded sheet of paper from his breast pocket, and began to read aloud the names of the slain in Nigeria, names the Nigerian government hadn't even acknowledged publicly. His voice trembled with fury and sorrow as he said, "These were innocent Christians, farmers, children, pregnant women. They were butchered in their sleep, and their own president has not spoken. Is this African leadership? Is this the brotherhood we preach?" The room fell silent. Journalists from France, the US, and across Africa looked stunned. Then he turned directly to the camera and added, "If a leader cannot defend his people, then he is not a leader, he is a spectator." Traoré's words spread like wildfire online. Nigerian youths began to reshare the clip under the hashtag #TraoreSpeaksForYous. Even some Nigerian celebrities broke their silence to praise him. But the Nigerian presidency? Still silent. More international journalists started pressing the Nigerian government for answers. Meanwhile, Traoré took it further, sending aid through ECOWAS channels and offering to host displaced families in northern Burkina Faso. The world watched, and that's when something unexpected happened. The unexpected happened during a regional security summit in Accra. Delegates from across West Africa gathered, presidents, defense ministers, intelligence chiefs. The Nigerian president arrived late, flanked by his usual convoy of black SUVs. Dark shades hiding the weight of criticism pressing down on him. As he entered the conference hall, the chatter died. Everyone turned. Traoré was already seated at the high table, dressed not in a fancy suit, but in his usual military fatigues, his Burkinabe flag stitched over his heart. He didn't clap. He didn't even look up. The tension was thick. The session began with discussions on terrorism and cross-border insecurity. But then Traoré raised his hand. The moderator, hesitant but compelled, gave him the floor. "Before we talk about regional security," he began slowly, "can we talk about moral security? Because when hundreds of our brothers and sisters are killed, and some of us stay silent, what moral ground do we stand on to fight for peace?" He turned slightly toward the Nigerian president. Leadership isn't about flying in jets or sending tweets. Leadership is standing with the people when their homes are on fire. There was a long silence. The cameras zoomed in. Nigerian delegates shifted uncomfortably. The Nigerian president forced a smile, leaned into his microphone, and replied, "With all due respect, Captain Traoré, this is a matter of internal affairs. Nigeria will handle her own problems." But the room didn't applaud. Traoré leaned back in his chair and simply said, "So far you have not handled it. The blood is still fresh." Whispers swept the hall. Traoré had said what many thought but feared to speak. The Ghanaian president broke the tension, suggesting a moment of silence for the victims in Plateau. Everyone stood, even the Nigerian president, reluctantly. After the summit, Traoré didn't attend the closing dinner. Instead, he met with a group of Nigerian activists and displaced families who had been smuggled into Ghana for safety. He hugged them, listened to their stories, took notes, and promised something that stunned even his own advisors. "If your leaders won't protect you, come to Burkina Faso. We'll find space, even if it's in our homes." That night, a new hashtag trended across Africa. #TraoréisAfrica. And the world, it watched as a new kind of African leader began to emerge. The following week, CNN, Al Jazeera, and France 24 All aired a special segment titled, "The Man Filling Africa's Moral Vacuum." Images of Traoré embracing Nigerian survivors played side by side with the Nigerian president attending a luxury yacht event in Lagos. The contrast was brutal. The global media had made their judgment, and it was clear. In Nigeria, the streets began to stir. Youth groups organized candlelight vigils not just for the slain, but as protests against silence and abandonment. Placards read, "We are not ghosts." Traoré spoke. "Why hasn't ours? Africa is watching." Back in Burkina Faso, Traoré took further steps. He called for a Pan-African Civilian Protection Task Force, a regional body independent of corrupt leadership, meant to respond swiftly to massacres, displacements, and genocides. Senegal and Sierra Leone expressed support. Guinea offered logistics. Even Chad, known for silence, quietly pledged funds. Meanwhile, a storm was brewing inside the Nigerian government. Senior military officers began to break ranks. One leaked a memo that proved the government had known about the plateau attacks 48 hours before they happened, and did nothing. That leak exploded online. Now the people weren't just angry, they were betrayed. Traoré released another statement. "African blood cannot be spilled in silence anymore. If we stay quiet today, tomorrow it will be our children." He announced a continental summit not for presidents but for the people. Traditional leaders, students, widows, farmers, clergy, and the forgotten. A People's Congress of Africa to discuss security, dignity, and unity, hosted in Ouagadougou. Within days, people from across the continent started their journey. Buses left from Kano, Bamako, Freetown, and even Dar es Salaam. They carried not just passengers, but pain, hope, and a deep hunger for change. As the People's Congress drew near, intelligence reached Abuja. Burkinabe forces were helping rebuild a Christian community in Plateau. And the Nigerian president was preparing a televised speech not out of empathy, but out of fear. Because Traoré had done something no bullet, ballot, or border had done in decades. He woke up Africa. When the day of the People's Congress of Africa finally arrived in Ouagadougou, the city was unrecognizable. Flags from over 30 African nations waved in the dusty air. Drummers from Senegal played beside dancers from Ethiopia. Maasai elders sat in the same rows as Nigerian youth activists, while women in vibrant wax prints cooked for strangers they'd never met. But they were no longer strangers. They were united by one thing: a new voice for Africa. Inside the stadium where the Congress was held, over 50,000 people gathered. Millions more watched live across the continent. No luxury cars, no staged protocol, just the people and a single podium. When Captain Ibrahim Traoré walked out, he didn't wear a suit. He wore a worn-out brown jacket, simple boots, and a humble smile. The crowd rose and chanted, "Traoré, Traoré, Traoré." He raised his hand and the stadium fell quiet. "I am not here as a president," he began. "I am here as your brother, a son of the soil, a voice from the ground." His voice echoed with fire and clarity. "We've been ruled by men who forget us, who drink foreign wine while our children drink from rivers filled with blood. But today we speak for ourselves. We bury fear. We bury silence. From Plateau to Bamenda, from Goma to Timbuktu, Africa is one voice." The crowd roared. Then something no one expected happened. A group of Christian survivors from Nigeria stepped forward. One of them, a girl no older than 16, held a charred Bible. She spoke slowly, her voice shaking. "When they came, they burned our church. They shot my father. They killed my brothers. We ran. We begged for help. No one came. But Traoré heard us." The crowd went silent, many in tears. Traoré walked over, removed one of his medals, and placed it around her neck. "You are braver than I will ever be," he said. News stations across the world broadcast the moment live. In homes across Africa, people watched in stunned silence. In Nigeria, it triggered something deeper. Thousands marched across Abuja, past the military barracks, past the National Mosque, past the presidential villa. Their chant was simple, Protect the people or step down. That night, as Traoré lit the Congress flame, a fire to symbolize unity and rebirth, a call came from the African Union. They wanted Traoré to address their next summit, not as a guest, but as the people's voice. And in that moment, the young soldier from Burkina Faso became something more than a leader. He became a movement as the flames of the Congress fire crackled behind him. Captain Ibrahim Traoré stood before a sea of African faces lit with pride, pain, and purpose. But while the world watched with admiration, not everyone was celebrating. In hidden corners of West Africa, certain presidents, oligarchs, and foreign envoys gathered in emergency meetings. Their private group chats buzzed with concern. He's becoming dangerous. He's igniting something we can't control. If this spreads, it's over for us. In Paris, officials at the Élysée Palace were panicking. Traoré's rhetoric had struck a nerve. Not only was he uniting the masses, but he was calling out the long-standing grip of colonial systems still strangling African economies. Meanwhile, in Nigeria, the president finally appeared on live television, wearing a somber face. The nation watched in silence. We regret the loss of lives in Plateau. Investigations are underway. We call for peace and unity. But it was too late. The people didn't want statements anymore. They wanted action. Young Nigerians booed the broadcast at street corners. Online, the response was brutal. You speak now because Traoré shamed you. Our dead deserve more than a press release. Too little, too late. Back in Ouagadougou, something unprecedented was taking shape. Delegates from Kenya, Mali, Togo, and even rebel groups from Congo approached Traoré quietly. They didn't just praise him, they asked him for help. We want to organize our own people's Congress. We want to build communities outside corrupt politics. We want to learn how you did it. Traoré didn't smile. He looked serious, tired, but focused. Then don't follow me. Follow the people. Listen to your land. Protect the weak. And when they call you crazy, keep going. He knew what was coming. The threats, the sabotage, the betrayal. But he also knew one thing. A fire had started, and no president, no foreign power, no military alliance could put it out now. As night fell, a convoy of ordinary Africans, Muslims, Christians, and traditionalists, followed the flame back to their villages, carrying with them not weapons, but a message. Africa was no longer waiting. Africa was rising. And Traoré? He disappeared for a while. No cameras, no speeches. Whispers said he was heading to a region no one dared go before, where the next battle wasn't just against bullets or bombs, but against the soul of fear that had kept Africa silent for decades. 3 weeks passed. No public sighting. No official statements. Rumors flew like wild dust in the harmattan winds. Some said Traoré had been assassinated by a joint plot of West African leaders and foreign agents. Others claimed he had gone underground, preparing for the next phase of his plan, building a united civilian militia to protect vulnerable communities across Africa. But on the 22nd night, in the dense forests of northern Benin, a region plagued by terrorists and abandoned by its government, something happened that silenced every rumor. A convoy of pickup trucks rolled into a village under siege. Women had already begun burying their dead. Children were hiding in clay ovens. Elders clutched prayer beads and waited for death. Then a voice shouted in the local tongue, "Do not run, we are your brothers." Out of the dust emerged Traoré. No bodyguards, just local hunters, volunteer nurses, farmers, and youth, armed with nothing but courage and homemade radio gear. They had built a communications network underground. They had mapped out the region. And that night, without firing a single bullet, they drove the armed gangs into retreat. Because the people weren't afraid anymore. Traoré took no interviews. He stayed to help bury the dead, sat beside crying children, slept under trees, ate the same millet porridge the villagers ate. Then, one morning, he stood before the people and said, "This is what victory looks like. Not in marble palaces, not on TV, but here in the mud with the people." He raised his fist one last time. Africa does not belong to presidents. Africa belongs to the people. Protect each other. That is how we win. Then he walked away, vanishing again into the trees. No cameras, no farewell. But across the continent, something irreversible had happened. Governments trembled. People organized. Churches and mosques began to march side by side. From Nairobi to Lagos, from Bamako to Kinshasa, murals appeared on walls. Traoré's face with the words, "We are awake now." And though he never returned to public office, never claimed a crown, never sat on a golden chair, Traoré became what every great leader dreams of becoming. Not a ruler, but a spark. And that spark became a wildfire.